How's the Detroit Sports Podcast going?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 242 on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Joining me today in studio, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Cuz, what's happening? Welcome to opening day, sir.
Dude, I got some new sweet swag. This is awesome.
You like it?
I'm loving this. You did a good job.
Yeah, no, whenever I do things with Vito, with you, Jason, everything kind of has been smooth, and I just kind of figured, you know what, when you're watching a basketball game, you're covering sports, and you're like, you know what, we need to represent it just a little bit more, other than just saying, hey, I'm Doc from Detroit Sports Podcast. I'm like, you know what, you fellas have been working hard, the podcast has been growing, so what's the next logical step? Slap some more stuff on, you know, some gear and some swag. So I figured, look, let me just go out there, get 4 jackets for the crew, and they came out nice, real nice. Everything really associated with the three-stripe life I'm down with, being as, Middle Eastern dudes. We all love Adidas. We all
tracksuits.
Yeah, we all love the tracksuits.
Full tracksuits and sandals.
Exactly. So everybody here at the network's rocking the Detroit Sports Podcast logo. And look, all props to Vito. You know, when he asked me, maybe a year ago, he's like, you want to get some swag? And I'm like, no, you know what, right now we'll just continue to grow the project and things like that. But at the same time, hey, when you guys do great work, I have no problem dropping some cash for some tracksuits and things like that. So wear proudly, tell everybody what we're about, and you can continue to grow this thing week by week. That's what, obviously everyone knows. We try to, my thing was trying to spread this thing like a virus, and the next best thing is just rock some gear because we need to represent, right?
Dude, Detroit Sports Podcast is AIDS in the 80s. Everybody's getting infected, baby.
Everybody's getting infected, sir. Well, darn it. The Michigan Wolverines, they earned their way to the Final Four, and many people like myself.
Darn it.
You know what? I'm not impressed by it.
It made you look like a genius.
Yeah, it was. It was cool. It was
as you trolled me all weekend long. All Sunday, you trolled me.
No, see, look, it was one of those things where, naturally speaking, I'm not a troll. But once it gets activated,
the biggest troll there is.
It gets activated. So Rashad Phillips messaged me and was like, look, I made a prediction.
Somebody hit a button, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, let's go.
What happened was Rashad Phillips messaged me, and he said, look, I made the same prediction as you. He said, on a show, I said Michigan was going to make it to the Final Four. And so I'm like, you know what? Me too. I said the same thing on my show. And my partner was yelling at me, calling me high. And so once it gets activated, I'm like, oh, you know what? I just, if Rashad's doing it, look, there's some part of it is that's, a heightened level of my personality. That's my WWE persona is the Doc. And so sometimes the Doc has to come out and pump his chest out and be like, look, not everything that I spit out of my mouth is stupid. In that once the bracket was released, I kind of had a feeling that Michigan was going to do some things. And now here we are. Michigan has earned their way to the Final Four, and they've done it a myriad of ways. One, in which, they had the miracle shot versus Houston. 2, they blew out Texas A&M. 3, they kind of grinded it out versus Florida State. And here they are in the Final Four. And they get a chance, San Antonio Final Four. They're playing Loyola of Chicago. How lucky has Michigan been, man? That's awesome. They're setting the standard for the state of Michigan in basketball right now. They're the IT program.
Yeah, at this point, they have, in my mind, totally surpassed Michigan State. If you go back just over the last 6 years, taking some of these numbers, 2 Final Fours, 3 Elite Eights, 4 Sweet 16s, 15 NCAA tournament wins. That ranks second behind, I believe, Kansas. 2 Big Ten tournament championships, 1 regular season championship, 7 NBA draft picks. Mind you, 6 of them went in the first round. Now contrast that to Michigan State, who has been the standard bearer for college basketball in this area forever now. They've had 1 Final Four. They've had 2 Elite Eights. They've had 3 Sweet 16s, 11 NCAA tournament wins, 2 Big Ten championships, as well as 1 regular season championship, but only 5 NBA draft picks, and only 3 of them went in the first round. So if you ask me, Beilein's getting it done. However you want to cut it, and whatever you want to say about the guys he's recruiting and the way he's running his program, he's getting it done. And the one thing I love about what Beilein has done, he's evolved. Do you remember when Beilein took over the Michigan program? We would have debates about it. Like, can they win basketball games this way? Can they continue to sit there and rely so heavily on the three and try to shoot lights out? Because at some point, when the jumper's not falling, you're going to go home. Michigan has evolved. They're now a team that plays on both ends of the court. They'll get big baskets when they need it. They'll sit there. They'll grind you to a stone and to a stump when they play defense on the other end. They'll out-rebound you. This is a complete team, a complete package. And you know what? This team right now that's in the Final Four, compare that to the last team that made it to the Final Four. This team is way less talented than what you had going on then. And I think you have a much better chance to win a title this year than you did back in 2013.
It's a fascinating look at when you're patient with a coach and you allow him to get assistants that also help complement what he does. And so John Beilein obviously has adjusted. What we've seen with John Beilein was he's a masterful offensive coach, but also he recognized, you know what? I need to adapt a little bit, add a little bit of grit to my team. So he's got some great assistants that have come in from other programs that have done some things. And so it's evolved to the point now where Michigan can compete nationally with the big boys by the fact that they play a great offensive style. They can muck it up a little bit, and they got something that Michigan State had in the past. They got a bunch of heart. And so John Beilein and what he's done deserves a lot of credit. And it's starting, the tide nationally, locally, has started to kind of come out, and people are like, Michigan's now a basketball school. Just when they start to observe what Michigan football has not accomplished, and they start to see what Michigan's done in terms of national respect and doing some things on the biggest stage, is Michigan a basketball school?
At this point, yeah. I think this is a better question to ask. Should Michigan fans be more patient with Jim Harbaugh? You're being rewarded now for being patient with Beilein, because remember when Beilein first got here, people wanted to run him out. They wanted him off the sidelines. They wanted him off the court. They didn't even want to sit there and try to instill what he was talking about. And now you look at what you're bearing fruit of. 2 Final Fours in the last 6 years, that's pretty good. And on top of all that, the myriad of other accomplishments that he's had. Should fans be more patient with a guy like Jim Harbaugh, who comes in with a ton of pop and circumstance?
And here's how hard it is. The national final is only 4 teams. You know what I mean? The college football playoff is only 4 teams collectively in Division I. You know how hard that is to make it? So you'd have to, assume that Michigan basketball, if that was the system, would only have success basically 2 or 3 times total. Mm-hmm. And so then the heat would get ratcheted up on John Beilein. But first and foremost, the benefit that John Beilein has is he's defeated his rival. Michigan State, this year was a year where Michigan State was highly ranked. Michigan went there and spanked, Michigan State on 2 different occasions. And so the heat would be turned down significantly and drastically on Jim Harbaugh if he'd get some victories or perform well versus Ohio State and Michigan State. That's step one. And in 3 or 4 years, when you got 1 victory versus your rivals, people aren't even expecting right now for Michigan football even to get to the college football playoff. They're like, look, step 1, beat your rival.
Right.
We expect that minimum. And so that's why it's super tough right now for Jim Harbaugh in that he's like, oh, God, we got the pressure of the fans. We got pressure nationally. We got all this expectation. And now you got Michigan basketball stealing all the attention. And it's just really unbelievable what Michigan has done. But for those that are skeptical, maybe Spartan fans, or for those nationally that say, look, Michigan's path to the Final Four was pretty easy. I mean, you didn't even play the teams that you were hoping for in terms of Xavier, North Carolina. The bracket just seemed to open up. And when people first evaluated it, like myself, I said, well, this bracket looks pretty easy. And if there's an opportunity for some upsets, Michigan has a cakewalk. How much respect do you give Michigan for this Final Four run, given the fact that, some of the teams that they've played have made some coaching mistakes and the caliber of programs that they've faced hasn't been the big dogs like Syracuse, like, Kansas, Duke.
When you say big dogs, you mean big dogs in name and name alone.
Exactly, the big dogs. You played Florida State, you played Houston, Texas A&M. Those aren't the blue bloods of college basketball.
If you go and you look at the actual teams that they played some competition. All right, and you can't. I know you looked at me like I'm crazy right there. All right, Houston has one of the best defenses in all of college basketball.
Botched ending again.
Okay, but still, you can only play who's in front of you. They played who's in front of them. Montana was another program that has a really good defense. They're a top 20 defensive efficiency rated team in all of college basketball. There's nothing you can do about the teams in front of you. You just got to play who's there. So I give them credit for taking care of business. And you look at the way that they've won their games. They've had a grind out 2, one against Montana, one against Houston, both very good defensive teams. All right. Then you look at what happened when they came back around. They ended up playing Florida State, right? Florida State threw 2 different lineups at this team. 2 different lineups. One was a long lineup and one was a quick lineup, and they handled both of them. They played Texas A&M, and they massacred them. That game from Jump Street, they just obliterated them. So they've shown different ways that they can win a game. You know, there's no set formula. They're able to adapt, and they're able to take on all challengers and all comers. And yeah, you're right. They haven't played any of the blue bloods of college basketball, but you can only play who's in front of you. It's not their fault that Virginia got popped. Not their fault that Xavier got popped. You know, not their fault that Cincinnati, who's supposed to be a really good team this year, got popped. Can't do anything about that. Now you've got to play Loyola Chicago. Here's the thing. If they don't make it to the finals, this was a failure. This entire run was a failure. And you can say that because you have to, expectations change. As this team gets going, gets rolling, and they keep sitting there surviving, advancing, or obliterating an opponent, or taking care of business, they survive and they advance. Now you're going to play Loyola Chicago, which is what, an 11 seed? You're going to play, and look, they deserve to be there, okay? I'm not going to make any bones about it. They deserve to be there. They, too, played who was in front of them, took care of business. Michigan needs to beat them. They need to roll into the finals. If they don't make it to the finals, all this was for naught.
Man, when you look at Loyola, too, probably one of the biggest mistakes in terms of seeding in the tournament, giving them an 11 seed based on the fact that they had won a significant portion of their games. They were a conference tournament winner. They play unbelievable. They got 5 dudes that can, take it to the hole. They got 5 dudes that can shoot the 3. So it's going to be, I believe, a great game. I don't believe that Michigan's going to come out and win by 15 points. I think it's going to be a very competitive game, one in which I think it's going to go back and forth. Maybe if Michigan can pull away, the big thing that people are noticing is that Michigan's bigger, stronger, faster than the players over there at Loyola. But given the fact that Loyola has some players that can, be speedy and shifty, it might cause some matchup problems for Michigan trying to guard that. So it's going to be a fascinating look because both coaches, Porter Moser and John Beilein, have a lot of respect now nationally, and it's going to be interesting to see if Loyola comes out and just shoots lights out, no pressure, just goes into the game, just kind of wheels and deals it, has a good time with it. You probably are going to see Michigan be a little bit tight early because you're exactly right. I do believe most of the fans in San Antonio are going to be pulling for Michigan, and so there's going to be a lot of pressure on Michigan. But I do think that, if Loyola wins, I don't think that Michigan's going to take a significant knock because of the fact that Loyola's done some great things. They played some amazing basketball, a solid coach, and they got assistant coaches that have been in the Final Four before. So it is a team that maybe has been the most underrated in the entire tournament. It's a fascinating look at a team, and I'm kind of hoping in terms of content storylines, do you think if Loyola wins it all, it's probably the biggest sports story, biggest sports upset of all time?
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't that be great to see? A team like Loyola? That'd be
not
awesome.
At all. No, not at all.
Right?
Not if you're a Michigan fan, it's not.
Right.
Here's the thing. Loyola Chicago is a very good team.
Very solid.
I'm expecting a game really similar to what Michigan had to go through when they played both Houston and Montana. They are ranked 13th in the defensive efficiency score. Michigan is 14. Houston was 10, and Montana was 19. So you're going to see a lot of similarities. I think as far as the game goes, it's probably going to be a low-scoring game. On top of that, both these teams match up incredibly well. If you look at their offenses, Loyola, I can't even say it. How do you say it?
Loyola.
Loyola. Thanks. I've been struggling with this for like 3 days. I tried saying it the other day when I was at work talking to a guy, and I just completely fouled it up. And he just looked at me like, "Are you retarded? Are you having a stroke?" And I was like, "I think I might be having a stroke. I have no idea what's going on here." Anyways, they score roughly just over 71 points, while Michigan scores just over 73 points. Now, defensively, they give up just over 62 points a game, while Michigan gives up just over 63 points a game. So I think you're going to have a very competitive game. I think it's going to be low scoring. I expect, look, for Michigan to have success in this game, you're going to have to continue to do what's got you this far. So expect to see Rockman get going early. If you can get Mo Wagner going early. And look, he had a really poor game. He came up with some big baskets late, but he had a really poor game headed into at least that second half against Florida State. So you get those two guys going early, and if Matthews can keep doing what he's doing. I mean, that guy's been amazing, coming out of nowhere.
Unsung hero. Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that.
Sure.
From Kentucky early on, kind of maybe look lost a little bit in that Michigan system, but when tournament time comes, that's all you can ask for. Somebody step it up. That's what Michigan State needed. Somebody else besides Bridges and Ward to step up. Nobody was able to do it in the big-time moments. Charles Matthews, my goodness, dropping 15 points plus on Florida State, looking like a dude that is a blue chipper there.
Yeah, absolute stud. Absolute stud. I think my biggest issue with this game is how much I'm going to have to see Sister Jean and her orange teeth.
Oh, is this the thing you're not happy with?
Yeah.
Come on.
Let's discuss this, okay? Because
you're on that bandwagon?
Is there a bandwagon for it? Because if there is, yeah, I'm leading the bandwagon here.
Everybody around town is against Sister Jean.
I'm so over her.
What?
I'm so over her. Like, her and her 110-year-old self can go someplace else. Just go away. Look, I don't know anybody from Loyola Chicago. I have no idea what they look like. I've got no clue who's on this team. I've got no idea who's supposed to be special from this program. Do you know why? Because all they talk about is Sister Jean. Every time you cut to a scene of her, it's her in her damn wheelchair with her orange teeth. They made a damn bobblehead doll out of her. Like, all of a sudden, she's become the arch saint of
America.
Of underseeded teams. This is awful. I have no clue. Do you realize I had to look up what their team mascot was? Because I didn't know. I thought they were the Fighting Sister Jeans. I mean, seriously, do you realize that Loyola Chicago, their team mascot is the wolf?
No.
I had no idea.
Clue.
No, exactly. You thought they were the Fighting Sister Jeans too. If I have to see her goofy, chick-lidded, orange teeth smile anymore, I'm just over it. I want her to go away.
Shame on all of you.
I want Michigan to pop them so she can go away.
Shame on all of you for hating on Sister Jean. It's one of the great stories.
Am I going to get struck down by lightning now?
Loyola would not be.
She's on God's side.
Loyola would not be as big as they were without Sister Jean. I think it's great. It's unbelievable. You got this lovely woman who actually put Loyola in the Sweet 16. She didn't have him in the Final Four.
She did.
She did it. It's a great story.
She did it herself. She's the one who's out there playing the basketball game.
Shame on all of you.
She can't even get up and walk around. She's in a freaking wheelchair. Come on now.
She's sharp at her age, advanced age of 90 plus. Come on, bro. How are you guys going to hate on Sister Jean? It's great. You got a chance for somebody who supports her team to come out there. Sister Jean has been amazing, and it's been one thing that has made the tournament awesome is the cutaways to Sister Jean, things like that. Look, we're all sports fans. We know the ins and outs and things like that, but some of the ancillary stuff in terms of Sister Jean has been amazing. And strike you all down for hating on a nun. Shame on all of you. It's great. I want to see more of Sister Jean. And guess what?
What?
She gets a 15-minute media session at the Final Four.
Does she really?
Yep. They're gonna. You get a chance to go and ask her questions.
No.
She's gonna. That's awesome.
No, that is horrible. Who is she? What is she? Does she play on this team? She is their mascot at this point. Yeah. So do you want to go interview Hooper at the Piston games?
So what do you think about Jalen Rose?
No, you don't.
Propping his grandma up there. Do you think that was staged a little bit, or do you think some people were like, dude, how are you going to have your grandma kind of make a comment up there? She's not going to want to get on social media.
Bro, I want to give her a knife, and I want to put these broads in a freaking Fight Club setting and see which one walks out. I don't care.
Oh, come on.
I'm over it. I don't need to see the old ladies.
Oh.
Look, go be a grandma.
No, but it's funny, though. The one part
Go be the grandma of Jesus. You can do this.
The funny part is the commercialization of Sister Jean. Somebody's like, oh my God, we can sell T-shirts, mugs, what can you put Sister Jean on? And she was like, okay, no problem. The university licensed her. How? I mean, what? I kind of am against that a little bit.
Again, dude, the Fighting Sister Jeans. Like, she is their team mascot.
What?
It's ridiculous.
What will you not be willing to sell? Sister Jean's a national phenomenon. She's great. She's sweet. How are you going to hate on an old woman? Come on, man. You got to have a little bit. You're over it?
I'm over it. Like CBS, TBS, TNT, I'm over all of this. Like, you guys, whoever is running the production in that production truck, I don't need to see her anymore. Quit sending the sideline reporter over to talk to her. I'm sure the sideline reporter is like, what? This is what it's come to? I can't interview a player? The guy who's out here breaking his back, sweating his ass off, and trying to sit there and get his team to the finals to win a championship. Not this old lady who's sitting here with her knitting gown on. No, I don't need it.
Okay, so now you said, you're hoping that Michigan can take Loyola seriously, get to the finals. What scenario do you think can Michigan, if they face Kansas or Villanova, what scenario do you think has to happen in order for Michigan to win it all? Because here's the thing. I think Michigan fans, if they're realistic, they want to play Kansas.
Yes.
They want to play Kansas. If they play Villanova, It's probably a wrap.
Okay, here's the deal. Villanova has too much. They've got way too much. They can score, they can play defense. Villanova has way too many rounds to sit there and pump into your body, okay? Kansas, on the other hand, I don't think Bill Self's a very good coach. The fact that they've made it to the Final Four kind of shocks me. He's a very good recruiter. He's a very good salesman. He is really similar to Calipari, where Calipari can go out and he can recruit the very best talent, and then he just kind of throws a ball out there and it's like, go play ball, boys. You know, when it comes to crunch time, Calipari, I don't think, is really dialed in on enough of the details to really get you over the hump if you need your coach to help you win a game. I think he wins games by talent alone. I think Bill Self is really similar to that. He gets by on the talent of his players and the guys that he goes out and recruits. He does most of his coaching in the offseason right before signing day. I think John Beilein is a much better coach than Bill Self, and I think that Michigan can go toe-to-toe with Kansas. If Villanova gets there, Jay Wright's a very good coach. Again, they've got way too many rounds in the pistol, and they'll just pump those into your body until you're dead. So I don't think Michigan stands a chance against Villanova. But against Kansas, I see a shot for you to go out and you to win the whole damn thing.
Shoot lights out. This is the time for Michigan to shoot lights out and bring that defense. Just do what you do.
Yeah, it's really what it comes down to is the fact that they have a defense. I think their defense could shut Kansas down. Michigan can go on both ends of the floor now. This is something you haven't been able to say about a Michigan basketball team in forever. So the fact that their defense shows up every single game, I don't worry about that. Even if they're not showing up on the other end, on the offensive side, I'm not worried because their defense can sit there and turn in such a performance that it makes it difficult on whoever their opponent is. And I think that's kind of where the difference is and why they can beat Kansas.
What odds you give Michigan to win it all? 50%. I think 50% is a good number because you do think that the game versus Loyola is heavily favored for Michigan to advance. But then, you know what? I do think Villanova is the better team. I think that they're going to come out in the second matchup and they're probably going to take it to Kansas.
Well, see, this is kind of, all right, so this is how I see it, right? So you got a piece of a pie, 100%, right? You got 4 teams, so everybody should roughly get about a quarter or so. Villanova, I think, is a much better team than Kansas. So Villanova, I think, probably has a 35% chance to win it, while Kansas has
maybe less than that, 20. Give them less, and then give the extra to Michigan, 30%.
And then I would probably say Michigan 30%. In look, Loyola, Chicago
gets the rest 20%.
Yeah,
15,
roughly
lower.
10, 15.
That's fair. I think it's going to be a fun weekend, one in which obviously you know what the Doc's rooting for. I'm rooting for Michigan to get to the finals and then lose to Villanova. That'd be great. That would be awesome because you know heartbreak is the greatest revenge. And so for Sparty fans sitting here now with the news that Miles Bridges has left, we're all sitting here waiting for the next thing for Michigan State to go forward. Positive for us.
What is this revenge that you speak of? Because you guys got beat by Michigan twice this year?
It's been all bad for Michigan State.
That's the revenge? You should be more pissed off at your coach who hasn't been able to get you past the first weekend in the last 3 years.
The scope of the nation's on us, man. Everyone's looking at everything we're doing, and everything has been slanted a little bit negative. We got to kind of turn the tide a little bit. So I think Michigan State fans just kind of want to sit in the weeds and just wait for Michigan to lose so that we can, chirp a little bit, just to make ourselves feel better.
But I think that's such a loser mentality.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do, man. Look, we're
do you not
we're
agree,
wounded.
Though, that's a loser mentality?
No, it's part of the rivalry.
Is it?
Michigan does it all the time.
Really?
Yes.
Did I chirp you when Michigan State lost?
Dude, you're more rational than most.
I'm the most irrational guy there is.
No, you're rational.
I'm built on nothing but emotions. That's why I come in here and I almost cry half the time because I get so wrapped up and pissed.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun weekend. One in which I think Michigan has a strong chance for success. Awesome stuff from Michigan. It's been a fun ride. And for John Beilein and what he's been able to do, it's been just a great story. And by all accounts, super clean. I mean, now he's getting the national respect. People want to talk to him. Jim Rome nationally come out and is like, Michigan's now a basketball school. People want to talk to the players. People want to talk to that program. And they've done it basically without major superstars, just really collectively a team that has been built. And now Michigan has, really a blue blood basketball program. It's nice to see.
Let me ask you this. Does Beilein have to win a national title to be considered a legit head coach?
No, he's considered legit now. No, I don't think he has to win. It's so hard to win it. I do think that he does have to maybe, in order for others to maybe give him respect. But I think nationally now, in terms of the fact that he's done it for a period of time, he's taken Michigan basketball and brought them to the Final Four on multiple occasions and even gotten them to the final. So when you look at the expectation, For Michigan, when you do that at Michigan, it's kind of similar to what Porter Moser's doing at Loyola. It's kind of like, look, Loyola is a program that most people don't know about or things like that. You brought them to the Final Four. Most people, when they look at Michigan, they think about football, and basketball has been an afterthought. Now they're in the national forefront, Final Four, multiple times within a span of a decade. So it's a good thing. I don't think that, he needs to be validated with a national title. It's really hard. And plus, it's Michigan. There's better teams. You would argue right now, of the four Final Four teams, Michigan is probably considered the third best. Mm-hmm. So it'd be amazing for them to do it, to overcome it. But they got a team to do it. They got a strong chance.
Let me follow it up with this. With Tom Izzo, everybody talks about him needing that second championship. Because of where Michigan came from, is that why it's not a necessity for John Beilein to have one championship?
Yeah, exactly. It's just overwhelmingly difficult. I mean, you got really blue blood programs. It's hard to get through the NCAA tournament. You got a lot of factors. And in terms of Michigan basketball, if you had told me maybe back, 5 years ago, how many championships would John Beilein ever win? I'd say 0.
Right.
I said the standard at 0, so 1 would be overwhelmingly amazing. Tom Izzo has elevated himself in terms of the program to build Michigan State to be considered an elite program where when they lose in the second round, it's a big deal. Whereas everyone else, dude, it's hard. Duke didn't make it to the Final Four. It's super hard, but Tom Izzo is compared to Krzyzewski. John Beilein, I think, is just compared to others, in the middle ground there of college basketball coaches, but he's very highly respected. Many people do believe now that, at his age, that he's done some great things and he can even get better. I think this program at Michigan, in terms of the next couple years, dude, they got some blue bloods coming in. They got guys that can shoot. They got continuation of talent. And if you can get just maybe some 4-star guys and really elevate them, then you have a great opportunity to even get that win, that championship win on multiple years.
I think if Beilein wins a national championship, he establishes himself as one of the elite coaches in all of college basketball. He puts himself up there with the likes of a Krzyzewski, with the likes of an Izzo. We'll even go as far as Calipari, Pitino back in the day before everybody realized what he was doing and how he was getting hookers for all of his players. Boeheim, he's up there with those guys if he wins another one. I think Jay Wright's a very, very good head coach.
Very solid, yep.
I like Jay Wright a lot. That's Villanova's head coach. I think he's awesome. I think Jay Wright's an exceptional head coach. If John Beilein can go out and win one, I think, and this just could be my fandom speaking, right? It could be me just wearing maize and blue glasses, and that's why I see it this way. I think John Beilein elevates himself past a guy like Jay Wright. And I don't know if that's fair or unfair. It's just kind of the way I feel and the way I see it. Because, like you said, Michigan came from, he basically took a basketball program that was non-existent at a football school and has made it so relevant that you've got guys like Jim Rome proclaiming that Michigan is now a basketball school.
Very awesome. And I think if you knew that, if you looked ahead and Michigan won it, you'd want to win it against Villanova. That would bring you ultimate respect.
Oh, that would be,
yes. Because they're a badass program. But if you don't, and you're asking who do you want to face in the finals, you want to face Kansas.
Yes.
You have an opportunity because, again, in the top moments, Kansas has the bigger chance of wilting, and Michigan has a chance of stepping it up. So it'll be interesting stuff. I can't wait for this weekend. An amazing tournament, one for the ages, one where it makes the transition from the NFL to baseball really smooth, in that college basketball can take over, slide in, have a great tournament. It's just a premier marquee event every March. And in terms of covering basketball, it's been great to see, man. I hope LCA gets a Final Four. I hope we can continue this run of great college basketball. And Michigan State, the rivalry is just going to get better. Michigan State, I do believe, is going to have this strong hunger. They got a player coming in that can score the basketball. I do believe there's going to be a renewed hunger at Michigan State. John Beilein is going to want to continue, and he's bringing in some dogs to keep this rivalry going. So it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Next couple of years are going to be fun, and in terms of talking about college basketball. So it's great to see. It's a great sport, and one, if you're not really into it, definitely check into it maybe earlier than March. It's really interesting, and you can learn a lot about hoops, especially here in the state of Michigan. All right, let's take our first time out. We'll come back. We're going to talk about the Tigers and the Lions, but also some news was made earlier this week. I think you and I both have to talk about it regarding a general manager that might be staying when we were all hoping he was going to either get promoted or broomed out. We'll talk about that next here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc and Jock here for our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a great place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic. Why do we use them? super easy when Adam and I have verbal warfare, when we record great podcasts, when we have great guests. We take all of our recorded audio and upload it quickly to Podomatic. Imagine if we have a great guest on and we send them a link and it doesn't work and they have to fiddle with it or it doesn't start playing right away. Then we would have horrible problems booking guests and things like that. But we haven't had that problem thanks to the work of Podomatic. If you're looking to start a brand new project and you want to reach a level of success as the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, we're going to recommend one host site and one host site alone, Podomatic.com. Thank you so much for downloading this podcast on opening day. I know everybody's going to get their drink on today, have a good time, stay safe, party downtown. It's going to be a fun time for everybody. Not a lot of people probably expected to show up at Comerica Park, but that's to be expected. I mean, when the team is in a full rebuild, most people aren't going to want to spend $50 to $70 just to stand at Comerica Park. And we're going to talk about opening day festivities, what we think of the Tigers in just a few seconds here. But earlier this week on Tuesday, everyone's going along, looking at Michigan, looking at opening day, kind of peeking at the Lions and what's going on during the offseason. And then news kind of sprinkles out that in terms of the Red Wings, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. It was the worst case scenario. I can't believe that that is what they were willing to kind of let out to the people. What was it? What did the Red Wings do that pissed everybody off? I couldn't find a single person that was down for the cause, and I know you couldn't have been. It was reported that both Ken Holland and head coach Jeff Blashill are likely to return for next season. Talk about a cock block, man. Jesus. You know, it just made me limp. That's all I could say. It was just terrible. I couldn't believe that news. I couldn't
muster anything up. Not even get a semi.
I couldn't even believe that was reported, man. That's horrible news. I think that when you have a story program like the Red Wings, 2 straight seasons, they haven't made the playoffs. And, bro, they don't even have 70 points this year. It's embarrassing. It's something where you need to hold yourself to a higher standard. And is this what Chris Ilitch is about, being this cheap? Is this what he's about, being that patient? Look, it's sports. Nobody's going to begrudge Chris Ilitch for brooming aside Ken Holland. You could argue that they're making a play for Steve Yzerman, but if you can foreshadow a little bit, why on God's green earth would Steve Yzerman come here where the minimum it's going to take is 6 years to get this thing rolling in the right direction? Because you can't start a rebuild with all the terrible contracts that have been handed out. You can't start a rebuild for 2 or 3 years. You think Steve Yzerman is going to go from Tampa, no state taxes, beautiful weather in Florida to come here? Come on now, use your brain. It's not going to happen. I'd say that likelihood of Steve Yzerman coming here at like 15%. And so what are you going to do? You're going to have Ken Holland come here and maybe not even give him a contract? Come on, man. Just pull the trigger. Thank him for the job that he's done. He will land on his feet. This is sports. What's the deal with Detroit? It's like, these owners are like super passive and they've gotten to the point where they're so loyal. And if your expectation is winning, then when you see what the Red Wings do on the ice, you see the product, you see the contracts. This product could have been better if different management was in place. The news is terrible. It's unbelievable. I'm sitting here like befuddled at the news that Ken Holland's coming back. It's unbelievable.
I think the strangest thing to come out in that report is that Ken Holland will be back with or without a contract. So what does that mean? You're just going to show up for work every day and not get paid? It didn't make any sense to me. I was like, are you that beholden to that position that you're going to come and meddle with whoever's doing whatever your job used to be? I found that to be perplexing and odd. But this speaks more to Chris Ilitch, right? Chris Ilitch is a guy who
sounds cheap and sounds very passive.
He sounds like he's a little bit in over his head. Where Mike Ilitch was sometimes a little bit too hands-on, especially in baseball. Telling Dave Dombrowski that he has to go pick up Prince Fielder and okaying certain deals that years down the line have hurt the organization, and now the Tigers are kind of in a spot that they're in. I think Chris Ilitch is kind of the antithesis of his dad, maybe more in the background, maybe not as passionate about the sports. So as long as there's a guy there that he feels comfortable with, he doesn't care. And of course he feels comfortable with Ken Holland. That's one of the only guys that he's known to have that position that for however long he's lived, you know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things where...
What's the rationale? What do you think is the reason why to keep him? I mean, you're that loyal for 4 cups. Okay, look, you've got an extra decade out of it.
Hold on, here's the thing. So if what you were saying earlier is right, if they are going to make a play for Steve Yzerman has 1 year left on his contract in Tampa. So they give Ken Holland another year, and then they broom him aside after, bring Stevie Y in. That is the only thing I can see. I don't know why you bring him back. It doesn't make any sense to me. I wanted him gone before the trade deadline this year. I have no clue why the hell you'd bring him back. Not unless you want your team to suck so damn bad that you're going to be in contention for the number 1 overall lottery pick again next year. And then you sit there and you go out and you play a game against Pittsburgh and you decide to win that, which hurts those chances even more. Like, just lose. Do all of us a favor and lose. That's all you've got to do.
And then go out and beat Pittsburgh. Like,
right.
Why? Meaningless 2 points. You got people tweeting like, oh, this is a meaningful win. These guys are still showing
meaningful.
Nobody cares. We want you to lose. We want you to get in the sweepstakes so that you can win the lottery. What are you doing? Stop being in the middle. Just lose out. It's an embarrassing situation now with the Red Wings because we're all waiting for this storied franchise to take the next step. And if you're going to wait an additional 2 years, you could be further ahead. This is why people are like on Team Tank because, you're in a situation now where you got all these bad contracts. There's no sign of, the future. The future doesn't look bright because of the fact that you maybe got 4 players and you don't have a goaltender that many people are fearful of at all. You put Caro in there, and he's looking like he's bumbling the puck all over the place. He looks like he was not ready at all. What has he been doing in the minors? You can't come up here and stake a claim for the job. You look really out of place. It's not a good situation right now across the board for the Red Wings. They don't have enough high-end talent. You still got Ken Holland coming up here going, we need this good mix of veterans and young people. Okay, well, that mix got you 65 points, bro, and it's just, I don't understand. I don't understand it. I'm hoping the play is that Steve Yzerman would take this job, but in the end, I feel like Steve Yzerman would look at it and go, wow, the rebuild's going to be a huge project.
It's going to be...
He'd get 2 free years minimum.
You would have to.
He'd get 2 years free because these contracts are horrible.
You got to wait for the old contracts to come off the books. And again, that's Ken Holland. That's all on Ken Holland. So all those people who defend Ken Holland, these bad contracts that you're saddled with, these are all him.
We're talking about the future.
He's not been a very good general manager since the salary cap's been instituted.
Exactly.
He was great with a checkbook. They said, here, Ken, here's an open checkbook. Go get the best players you can buy. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. I could be a GM for a team with rules like that. Okay, it's totally different now. There's a salary cap. Speed now wins in the NHL. You can't do a left wing lock and you can't grind guys to death anymore. It doesn't work that way. You can't sit there and roll out 2 lines that are real productive and then 2 lines that can sit there and check the hell out of you. It doesn't work that way anymore. Everybody's got to be able to score. All 12 of your forwards have to be able to put the puck in the net. They can't have a goose egg for their goals like I do in my hockey league. You can't have it. It's not allowed. It doesn't work this way anymore. Right?
Move along.
Even your defensemen have to be able to put the puck in the net.
I'd even still grade him a B. 4 Stanley Cups. Yeah, the issues that occurred in the salary cap era definitely take him from an A-plus general manager. Thank him for, look, you don't even have to broom him aside. Just give him another position. Make him president of something. Make him some honorary job that he can just sit in an office, collect big money, stay in Detroit, keep him as a mind, a high-paid consultant, whatever it is. But it's time to move on. It's time to get new, younger blood in here to run the Red Wings. I mean, 2 years for the Red Wings not being in the playoffs is really bad.
What about this? All right, so you've seen trades for front office personnel. You've seen it in the NFL. You've seen it happen in other leagues. I don't think we've ever seen it in the NHL, not that I can recall, at least off the top of my head. What if, because there's been rumors about Seattle getting a team and Seattle's team wanting Ken Holland and all of this, and Seattle sold out their arena within like 2 hours when they put tickets up for sale. So what if Seattle came to Detroit and said, look, we'll make a trade with you. You give us Ken Holland, and
what would you get for Ken Holland?
I don't know. I don't even know. But if you could somehow fleece some kind of pick out of them, or you can fleece some, there would be something that you'd have to get back in return. I don't know what you would get.
Yeah, it's just
but
tough.
Would you trade him? I would trade him,
of course. But
get something for nothing, right? A guy who I don't even want here. Just give me something.
See, the thing is that we now know that Chris Ilitch is beholden to Ken Holland. There's a strong tie, a strong loyalty. You know, when you win 4 cups, I do believe that it's really hard, obviously, to just broom somebody aside. So that's why I say promote him, give him a better job, pay him more money, and get somebody else to run.
Let him be an advisor or something. I don't know. I mean, when Scotty Bowman was here, right? When he left coaching, they kept him on as an advisor until he wanted to go work in Chicago. And you see what that did for Chicago. They won some Stanley Cups, and they were real competitive for a long time.
Yeah, what pisses everybody off is the notion that most people don't think that Ken Holland's going to leave the organization. He's going to be part of the organization. He's going to have a solid voice.
He's going to die here.
He's going to be here forever, right?
He's going to die in that office in that damn chair that he sits in.
You know what's going to make us all die this year? Watching the Tigers for a 162 game stretch. Isn't it embarrassing?
Happy opening day, everyone!
I want to ask you this. I want to start with this regarding the Tigers, okay? Because look, we got to move on from the Red Wings. That was enough time. 8 minutes is more than enough to talk about the Red Wings. Man, what a disaster! But the Detroit Tigers, I want to start
another
with
one of Chris Ilitch's teams that suck really bad.
Do you think that they should have made this push all in for all this advertisement for ticket sales? Do you think that sometimes you just got to recognize, look, we got a crap product right now. We assume that the fans are not going to come out in droves. I mean, they literally had advertisements for selling tickets at the Wings game. Tickets are on sale. Tickets are on sale. They've kind of put tickets on Groupon. They've done everything as, humanly possible to push ticket sales. I think it's embarrassing because it's been known in the past that tickets for opening day would fly off the shelf. Mm-hmm. It was the hardest ticket in town. Once you recognize maybe a month ago, ticket sales are soft, do you just say, you know what, let's just kind of move on to the next game, or let's just kind of talk about the season, talk about ticket packages, talk about the strengths, maybe all the players coming back that are going to be honored with their jersey retirement with Alan Trammell and things like that, Jack Morris. Just focus your attention on something else because it kind of comes across as desperation. Opening day. Look, you still got Michael Fulmer game 2. You have an opportunity maybe to sell tickets across the board. Just say, look, we'll just settle for the ticket sales that we got now. Let's kind of back off and let's not just hammer the point that tickets are available because it's kind of embarrassing. It's opening day and there's probably going to be 10,000 seats available. You could probably walk up to Comerica, get tickets maybe $20. It's embarrassing, and I feel like there should have been some recognition of that and just say, look, let's just back off. Let's highlight some other things. Let's sell tickets for throughout the rest of the year because I'm thinking maybe average attendance this year might be in the neighborhood of 12G a game, if that. Maybe. It might be really bad. Should they have gone all in to push tickets for opening day?
I don't know if you should have went all in to push tickets.
Just take your $25K for opening day and keep it moving.
I think the one thing that they probably should have did should have looked at restructuring their pricing.
Yeah,
it looks. I don't know how many accounting classes or how many business classes you had.
0
on your way to get all the toilet paper that you have that adorns all your walls here.
Yeah,
you've got multiple degrees. You've got degrees falling out of your butt, basically.
Yes.
So I took a lot of accounting and a lot of business classes when I was in college, and it's all supply and demand. Right. So there's a price point that you can find to sit there and keep butts in seats. So you restructure your price plan and you bring those prices down because it's going to be a very subpar product. So now you have subpar pricing, and you know what? People are in your stands. People are filling in your seats with their butts because they're like, oh, okay, cool. I can justify paying $20-$25 to get really decent seats to go see opening day, to go watch a Tigers game and be entertained for 2-3 hours. There's a justification that you can find there. I myself can't justify spending $40, $50, $60 for standing room only seats to go to opening day. Why would I do that? Why would I want to do that?
It's more fun to go to the bar, obviously, with the prices, yeah.
I mean, you could walk down the street, go to the Fillmore, get in for free, and you can sit there and take that $40, $50, $60 and pay $8 a beer and get sloppy drunk if you wanted to. I'd much prefer doing something like that than paying that money, standing in the cold, and that's just to get in. That doesn't count the beer, the peanuts, the hot dog, anything else that I want while I'm there. And on top of that, I don't get a seat. I have to stand. I mean, does any of that sound fun? Does that sound fun to you? It doesn't sound fun to me. I'm not on board with any of that. So, no. And going forward for the season, I really think they need to address this issue because you're going to be basically playing for nobody. There's going to be nobody there watching these games if you continue with your regularly structured price point because you're not going to be a good team. And I think the expectations for this season are low. If you go across and you look at any news outlet and you look at their predictions for where they expect this team to finish, everybody has them finishing dead last in the American League Central. I myself think they're going to finish somewhere in the bottom 5 of all of Major League Baseball. They're not going to be a very good team. This team has essentially 2 guys. It's Miguel Cabrera, who's been badly injured the last couple years and hasn't had a chance to really stay healthy. Michael Fulmer, a young up-and-coming guy who looks like he could be a star, but is now dealing with elbow issues because of his delivery. So those are your two guys that you're trying to build your organization and your franchise around. All right, you've got a guy out in right field who can hit some bombs, but he tends to swing at a lot of stuff. So if he cuts down on his strikeouts, maybe he'll be productive. And then after that, you've got either this second wave of guys, or you've got these guys who are kind of clogging up your pipeline, who are going to play maybe a season and a half, and then they'll be moved out. So you really don't have anything substantial out there. You've got Jammer Candelario, who's looks to be a pretty solid third baseman, and everybody is really hopeful for that. You've got Dixon Machado, who finally got a roadmap and figured out how to get to Detroit. I don't know. He was stuck in Toledo forever. He just sitting there driving around Toledo, couldn't figure out where 75 was. Whatever. Okay. And then you've got just random guys, Mikey Matuk, Martin out in outfield next to Castellanos. So Castellanos will be on a Vespa, and Matuk will be there, and then Martin. Okay, cool. I mean, am I selling this team to you? Because
no.
What are we talking about here? What are we talking about?
I think what people have noted to us and what people are kind of talking when they message us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, they just want to evaluate what this team has, find some pieces maybe that you can sell off, find some pieces that can evolve, and bring up some young cats that can get better at the major league level.
Would you be happy if this team was competitive for, we'll say, 95% of the season? I'm not asking you for a win total, but what I'm saying by competitive...
play good fundamental baseball. Exactly.
What I'm saying by competitive is you're in the game up until the 7th, 8th inning.
Yeah.
And then maybe your bullpen blows it. Maybe there's an error in the outfield. Maybe they get hot in an inning, and that inning happens to be in the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. But they gave you a solid 2/3 of a ball game.
Exactly.
Are you comfortable with that?
I'm okay with fundamentally sound baseball, not making the same mistakes, and being accountable. Exactly. Getting better. That's all you can ask for, is that if you're, a pitcher like Jordan Zimmerman, you get back to form. If you're Michael Fulmer, you don't do anything to damage that arm. I just need the
What if you're Daniel Norris? Yeah. And right now, we're not really sure if you're going to be in Toledo or you're going to be in Detroit, and there's a good chance you're going to be putting some miles on between both places.
I just want to hear for Daniel Norris that the mental side of the game has gotten better, that he's not such a mental case, and that when one bad pitch doesn't go his way, then he doesn't just flame out and give up 5-6 runs, because that's the MO on Daniel Norris, is kind of a mental case. Doesn't have the right now the mental strength to kind of go 6, 7, 8 innings deep into games and handle the ups and downs of stupid umpires who, butcher calls and things like that, because he's got stuff. And that's why more people are kind of thinking he's a bullpen guy.
Which sucks too, because he was a guy who was a guy that when you traded for him, you were like, oh wow, this guy's going to fill out. He's already got the makings to be really productive. He's going to be a guy who you can pencil in maybe the top 3 of your pitching order, no lower than your 4th best pitcher on your rotation. He's a guy who's going to do some things. He's going to be awesome. He's going to be able to give you a better than 500 record every single season. He's going to strike out a bunch of guys. It's going to be awesome. On top of that, he lives in a van and he shaves his face with an axe. And you're like, oh, wow, that guy sounds incredible. I can't wait to meet him, right? I got a sister. Can I introduce you? And then he shows up and no.
Do you think the likes of a Fulmer or a Miguel Cabrera are going to be here? We've talked about it all week on the network. I do believe a lot of people are just kind of hoping that Fulmer stays healthy, is an ace caliber pitcher, and you hope that Miguel Cabrera can come back and regain some form, stay healthy, so that Fulmer, Cabrera could bring you 6 players that can be, the pieces that can jumpstart a rebuild. I do believe that has to be the plan. Iglesias, Fulmer, and Miguel Cabrera have to be gone by the trade deadline. You have to. This season, you're looking at realistically a 4 to 5 year push to get some good players. So in 5 years, is it worth it to keep Miguel Cabrera? It's not worth it. Is it worth it to keep Michael Fulmer? No, we're talking about epically bad expectations right now. And Ron Gardenhire's sitting pretty like, okay, all I got to do is teach these guys to hit the cutoff man, try to get to, not blown out 8-5 every game. I got a couple pieces here. So if you got Zimmerman, Fulmer, and Cabrera, if they just kind of step it up a little bit, maybe at the trade deadline, someone's desperate enough, and you pay half the salary of Jordan Zimmerman, and you take a little bit of money and you pay off, Miguel Cabrera, you pay some of that contract. It's worth it to let him go. Get some of those huge hauls. That has to be the end game. Play well, hope these guys can perform, and ship them out. Anytime you see Nick Castellanos hit a home run, don't be like, yeah, we're going to keep this dude. No, look for the dudes that you can sell off to jump off this rebuild. That's what has to happen. Every single person that contributes to this team has to be on this version. Anybody on this roster, whether it be a prospect, whether it be somebody on the opening day roster of 25 men, you have to look at them as a tradable commodity. That's it. Because you're looking at 5 years minimum. You're not going to be in the World Series in the next 3 years unless some miracle happens and all these guys gel and everything falls into perfect place. But that's just really, I think you and I have better odds of winning the lotto than it is for the Tigers to strike it rich with a bunch of prospects. Come on,
or
now.
hooking up with Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
So Michael Fulmer, as long as he stays healthy by the trade deadline, I could see him being traded. And this goes back to something that we talked about last year, and this is something you brought up, and I was adamantly opposed to it because I thought Fulmer was the guy you could build around. After going through a large part of the season last year where he was dealing with some elbow discomfort, going into the offseason this year and down in spring training where he was dealing with some elbow issues, I just need him to stay healthy enough to where you can trade him because I don't trust that elbow. At any point, that arm can go. So you trade him, you get a couple prospects, you do some things. As far as Miguel Cabrera goes, you want him gone because you see what the production is. You also see what that contract is. So you're not getting the production to equate what $30 million should be for the year. At 34, his contract runs until he is 39, and then I believe he's got options at 40 and 41. Okay, he'll be an unrestricted free agent at 42. I don't know who's going to pick up the tab on this guy who's got $30 million assigned to his name for the next 3 years. Then that's followed up by 2 years at $32 million. And then that's followed up by 2 more years where he has the option for $30 more million. I'm not sure what team's going to be like, yeah, let's do that. That sounds great. Maybe only Dave Dombrowski because he was the one who slid him this contract and signed him. And I think Dave has a love and affection for Miguel Cabrera because you got to remember, that's the guy that helped draft him. That's the guy who Miguel Cabrera helped win Dave Dombrowski a World Series. And the one of the first trades Dave Dombrowski made was to get Miguel Cabrera here in Detroit. So unless Boston needs a first baseman and they're cool with writing checks for $30 to $32 million for the next couple years, that's the only person and the only player I can see in the ballpark to get a guy like Miguel Cabrera right now. I just don't see it being a possibility just because the value's not there for a guy of his caliber, of his ilk at this declining age.
Final number, what win total do you think for the Tigers this year? 75, 70, 74, 74 to 80? I kind of see them being competitive.
74 to 80 wins?
Yeah, I think.
You think they're going to be about a 500 team?
I think
80 wins, you're about a 500
team. There's a lot
team.
of bad American League teams. You're playing the dreads of the American League Central 38 times.
I think
can't get 20 of those wins.
I think we should maybe pick how many losses.
Okay.
I think 90. I'm going to say 90 to 97 losses for this team.
Okay. I think that obviously everyone starts with 100. I think most people have them going 62 and 100. But I think in that realm, I wouldn't be totally shocked if they, win 70 games. I think that's fair. 70 games. 70 and 92.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably what it's going to be. It's going to be a tough year, probably similar to the Red Wings. We'll have topics here and there periodically as we get through the draft and things like that for the Lions. But the Tigers, you just hope that there's no off the field stuff. You hope that Ron Gardenhire keeps this together.
Is there anything that can kind of change those expectations for you? Anything that would just kind of flip the script a little bit for you?
Everybody's got to ball out. Everybody. I mean,
Right.
literally top to bottom. Everybody on the 25-man roster has to exceed expectations just for them to win 81 games.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like the talent across the board is better everywhere than it is in Detroit.
So like Boyd is pitching really well right now, coming out of spring training.
15 wins and 20 wins, right?
Right. Boyd looks like if something has clicked for him, at least in spring training. Now it's only spring training, and everybody's working on something. All right, but you're going to need Zimmerman not to get hurt. You're going to need him to play at a level that you signed him for. Fulmer's going to need to not get injured. You're going to need other guys in this rotation to step up and play either above their ceiling or right at their ceiling. And I'm not sure you can get that 162 games out of the year. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
On top of that, you've got so many guys that either shouldn't or maybe couldn't be here if they were on another roster. Do you know what I'm saying? 100%. They're like 4A guys, or they're guys who we need a guy to play this spot, so let's bring him up and let's put him in because our pipeline's clogged, Like Dixon Machado's a perfect example. This is a guy who has spent years in Toledo. They need to see what he's got at this point. That's why he's up here. That's why he's playing. Don't let anybody else tell you anything different. The reason why this guy is here right now is because they need to know what they have with him because he's been in Toledo forever. Forever. At some point, you got to get something for him, and you got to know what you got, and you don't have a second baseman. So what are you going to do? You got to play what you got.
All right, final timeout. We're going to talk Lions. Thank you for sticking with us. We're going to talk about the Detroit Lions. We're going to talk about a team in the NFC that has loaded up, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're all jealous here in Detroit is because we look at one team that had a solid season in 2017, and they've just stocked up in 2018. They might be looking to make more moves. Your Lions, kind of quiet, looking to build in the draft, but when a report came out and looked at how many draft picks the Lions have, you probably assume they're going to try to get more because they're ranked in the bottom in terms of total number of draft picks. So if you're going to build through the draft, but you don't have as many draft picks as the rest of the league, it's starting, kind of to become concerning for a lot of fans. We'll talk about it next on the Doc and Jock podcast here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thank you for your continued support. We greatly appreciate it. The free and easy way to help us keep the microphones hot, the studio lights on here in Sterling Heights. Just visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's the hub of the operation. You can go see what show airs when, check out who's hosting all these amazing podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. You can take care of all your online shopping needs. You can visit the Amazon banner, click through. You can buy Detroit sports tickets. We greatly appreciate it. Every time Adam and I check the numbers, downloads are up, hits are up. We're doing great things, putting DSP logos all over stuff. It's a great time to be part of the network, and I greatly enjoy everybody that's been emailing, asking questions regarding how we've done this, asking us to help and trade retweets. We really appreciate it. It's really nice to know that we're in the mix, and that's all we wanted to do. We wanted to spread like a virus and be in the mix, and that's largely due to the support of everybody that follows us, and we always greatly appreciate it. We want you to know that. Visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com, hub of the operation. You won't be disappointed. I promise. Because you know who has been phenomenal in the NFL offseason? The St. Louis freaking Rams. Holy cow. Have you seen the additions on that roster? And they added Ndamukong Suh at a discount. 1 year, $14 million. You see all the defensive people they've added? Holy cow. That was a team that was in the postseason, made a huge splash. And you look at what the Lions are doing and you go, okay, you just compare the Rams to the Lions. Why can't we kind of hit the pedal to the metal? The Rams seem to. They've kind of pinpointed like, oh boy, we got a quarterback. He's young. We got a bunch of players. We got some cap space. Let's make some moves. Holy cow. Have you seen the Rams? Damn, bro. They loaded up.
You get Aaron Donald and you get Ndamukong Suh.
Jesus.
Both for 1 year.
Aqib Talib.
And you know what we had? We had Eric Ebron for 4. So, hey, there you go.
It doesn't stack up when you just look at the Rams in the NFC.
When it all comes down to it, it's all Eric Ebron's fault.
Right. It's all Eric Ebron's fault.
It's all Eric Ebron's fault.
Jesus. Man, I
know, it's nuts, isn't it?
I saw those signings and I started to look at it all together. And I know in the NFL, more often than not, super teams kind of fail. Mm-hmm. But when you see youthful coach that can do some things that's, a wizard offensively, you got, Wade Phillips that's a genius on defense. It just kind of seems like they kind of have now pushed their chips to the middle, and they're the team to beat in the NFC. And you look at the Lions where you go, okay, you want to compete with the best of the best in the NFC, and it seems like the Lions are taking the slow and steady pace, which my rational brain can understand. You're the Lions. It's going to be a long-term process with a new coach. But then you see the others that are speeding by you, and you're like, damn, I kind of want to hop on that train. I don't want to hop on this patient train. I want to hop on the signing players train. I want some sexy moves. I want some talented individuals. I don't want to just kind of be excited about a 30-year-old plus running back that's been on championships before you. I want some dudes that are that are hungry, that want to come here, make Detroit a destination. It just feels like you're at the dance and all the hot chicks are going out with the other dudes, and you're there, you're in the party, but you're not getting no attention, you're not getting no love. You're getting the, hey, can you go get me some cider? You're like, no, I don't want to get no cider. I want to dance. I want to have a good time. And they're like, well, good. Be happy to be here, but you're not going to get no love, no attention. You're just going to be, the lackey at the party. And I don't like feeling like that. I want to feel like that the Lions are the bad boys on the block, and they're far from it, from these moves. It's like, dude, why are you being so conservative? Look, all you got to do, the Lions, is go all in 1 year and hit. I know you want to build this long-term thing and you want to be ultra successful. Really, in the end, nobody believes that's going to happen. Nobody, no fan of the Lions thinks that Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia is going to build the Patriots. Nobody believes that. We just want to see you load up a couple years, You got Stafford. It's probably, arguably, our best chance to win. Load up for 2 years. Just go for it. I don't think fans would be like calling us up and tweeting us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. They would not be coming in and tweeting, guys, I feel like we're loading up. I feel like the future success of the Lions is at jeopardy by trading all these draft picks, by getting all this talent. I feel like that's a bad thing. Look, no fans of the Lions expect long-term 20-year success from Bob Quinn. You got Stafford. He's 30 damn years old. Go all in. Let's go. Be the Rams. What are you doing?
Well, I think the thing you got to look at is the Rams last year were in a totally different spot than the Lions were. All right,
Jared Goff is in year one of us being a starting quarterback, and he looked better than Stafford.
I get it.
The playoffs.
He also had a head coach who developed an offense to perfectly suit him. Matt Stafford's never had that. And the closest he ever had that, he put up his best totals, and that was back when what's his nuts was here. Guy ended up going on to coach Dallas, be their offensive coordinator. Anyways, the Rams were 11-5 last year, and they were able to host a wild card game. They ended up getting beat by the Falcons handily, but still a totally different team. This is a team that feels like they're a few pieces away. Do you feel like the Lions are a few pieces away?
A few dozen pieces away, right?
Exactly. So the way you got to build your team, the things you got to do are a little bit different. Now,
so you want to load up for Stafford to be 33 to win it all?
All that being said, I've been very underwhelmed by what they've done this offseason. I think the way they've addressed their free agency, while I get it, I don't necessarily like it, if that makes any sense. All right? Look, I think the one thing you can say about what this team is doing and what they like to do is they like guys who are versatile. They're on defense, they're going to throw multiple packages at you. Sometimes it might be a 3-4. Sometimes it might be a 4-3. A lot of times it'll be a nickel. Maybe there'll be a dime. It's going to be a lot of different packages and subgroups. And Matt Patricia is going to utilize every piece that he has at his disposal. So I think their approach to free agency this year, compared to the Rams, who said, hey, who's the best guy we can go get to fill into this spot? They went out and they addressed those needs by trading for Aqib Talib, by going out and paying $14 million for Ndamukong Suh. On top of all that, you got to remember, those guys tend to have a rapport with their defensive coordinator. Do you know what I'm saying? Aqib Talib, some of his best performances were with Wade Phillips as his defensive coordinator. And he wasn't a total head case in a mental knucklehead when Wade Phillips was his DC. So you got to look at the whole picture. Don't just look at the apple in the picture now. All right. All that being said, I think what the Lions did is they said, look, we need a girth of talent. We need a lot of guys. We've got to infuse a lot of talent, especially at linebacker. We need other pieces too to help fill out our roster, but we really need to address our linebacking core. They went out and they spent good money, but they spent money on guys who aren't the number one guy, aren't the number two guy. These are like guys who are like bottom of tier 2, top of tier 3. Do you know what I'm saying? So they're good, useful pieces. They're guys who can play up on the line, guys who can play back in coverage, and can play in multiple fronts. So they're nobody who's exceptionable, but they're kind of like a jack of all trades, a guy who can do a little bit of everything for you, but he's not excellent at any one thing. And I think where you and I get a little upset with all this is we need a guy who's really good at getting to the quarterback, or we need a guy who can drop back and can pass protect. And if a quarterback's going to sit there and wind up trying to throw down the field, we need a guy who can get back there and cover somebody and force an interception or break up a play. We want a stud. We need a guy. We want a name. And what we got a bunch of dudes. And sometimes a bunch of dudes can work out, and the more this free agency period goes on and the more we start looking at things and the more I start to kind of digest and understand what they're trying to do, I'm not appalled at it anymore. I was appalled at it. I'm not anymore. I still think there were moves that could have been made to really help this team and make this team better, but I'm okay with what they're doing right now. And I think a lot of this speaks to what they're going to do in the draft. And I think the way this is going to work out is Matt Patricia has already come out and been on record as saying that the position we really need is tight end. Well, no duh. You just cut your tight end and you didn't do anything with that $8.25 million. You basically went and signed Luke Wilson and you got your rookie from last year, Michael Roberts. So in this draft, I expect them to draft a tight end. It'll probably be in the 3rd round. All right. You're going to draft a running back. It's going to be in the first 2 rounds. You're going to address your defensive line, whether it be an edge rusher or it be a D tackle, That's probably going to be in your first round. If not your first round, that will be in your second round. It's going to depend on who's there. I expect Bob Quinn to sit there and try to move back and acquire draft picks, and we'll talk about that in a few moments.
Okay, now I want to run this by. Now, this is the crazy brain of the DOC thinking this way. Okay, you got Matthew Stafford. You got the makings of a defensive coach. Okay, you got a situation in which there are a couple talented individuals who are not happy in their respective positions. Okay, 2 first-round picks is all it would take to pluck Odell Beckham Jr. for the Lions. Maybe a couple second round added and sprinkle in other draft picks, okay? Now you got a boatload of money that you can maybe save up, and now you could also get Le'Veon Bell. If you're aggressive, you got a 30, 31-year-old about to be Matthew Stafford next season in 2, okay? 30, 31, 32. Just go out there and you go out and get the sexiest players possible and make the run. Say, look, we're now mortgaging the future for the next 2 years. Well, you don't think that with the best preeminent wide receiver in the game and the best running back for 2 years, you would sacrifice the next 10 years for those 2 guys with Matthew Stafford? You don't think that gets you to the NFC title game in this NFC? Go for it.
How many footballs do you play with?
1.
Okay, and those guys are guys.
1 for Odell, 1 for Le'Veon.
Those guys
one
are guys
Odell,
who want the ball
1
and
for
need
Le'Veon.
the ball all the time.
1 for Le'Veon, 1 for Odell, then 1 to
you've done this
Luke Wilson. 1 for Le'Veon.
But you've done this before. When you had Calvin Johnson, you signed him to one of the richest contracts for a wide receiver at the time ever. All right, you did this for Ndamukong Suh. Do you remember when you sat there and you restructured Ndamukong Suh's contract? I mean, you had 2 dominant players on both sides of the line. On top of that, you were paying your quarterback. He was still making money in the top 10 of all the quarterbacks. You can't have that much wealth distributed to only 2 and 3 players. You've got to sit there and you've got to find a way to spread it out. That's the big issue I had with them re-signing Ziggy Ansah. Ziggy Ansah sits there and he pulls in a boatload of money, a ton that counts against your cap. That's what drives me nuts about his contract right now, because you got a guy like Matt Stafford making a bunch of money, and believe me, what Matt Stafford makes is well-deserved, especially when you go back and you look at what a guy like Kirk Cousins is making right now. Kirk Cousins is making ridiculous money, just retarded cash. But you look at what Stafford's making, and then you compare that to what Ziggy Ansah's making. Matt Stafford takes up almost 15% of your cap. Ziggy Ansah takes up over 9.5% of your cap. With 2 players, you've got over 25% of your cap already taken up. I mean, what does that do for the rest of the team? Yeah, I want some dogs on the defense, and I want some dogs on the offense too. We don't necessarily need a wide receiver. Do you know what I'm saying? You got Golden Tate. I think he's good enough. You got Marvin Jones. I think he's good enough. You got Galladay. I think he's good enough.
See, that's the phrase I think that
good enough
doesn't pay. Good enough doesn't pay.
I get it, and I understand what you're saying.
Good enough gets you to the playoffs.
I understand what you're saying, all right? But I think this team could look much better if you added somebody to that offensive line. I think if you added some pieces to this defense, it'd be much better. You know, you need a running back. We keep forgetting that you need a running back. Yeah, if you could load up and you can go get Le'Veon Bell, I'm all about it. Go ahead, knock yourself out. Sign Le'Veon Bell to the richest running back contract for the next 3 years. I'm cool with it. Okay, you pair him with LeGarrette Blount, gravy. Awesome, let's do it. It's not what's going to happen. They're going to pick up their running back in the draft. They're going to pick up their defensive line help in the draft. That's what's going to happen. At some point, they're going to draft a tight end. Hopefully that tight end knows how to hold on to a damn football and can block. He can do some things. You know, what's going to end up happening with this draft, you're going to add pieces. You know, you might even pick up an offensive lineman. I wouldn't be surprised if they picked up an offensive lineman who somehow finds his way onto the starting rotation by the end of the year. Would that blow your mind? It's not going to blow my mind if that happens. Because we've already established, I just named 4 guys that they could go and draft in this draft right now that would immediately help this team. So you want to go load up and you want to go grab 2 guys when I've already named 4 holes that you've got to address. Do you know what I'm saying? That's kind of where they're at right now. That's why they're going with this buckshot approach on grabbing linebackers and trying to get guys to come over here and play for the money that they're paying them. They don't have an endless account of cash. They only have so much money that they can spend, and a lot of that pie chart has already been divvied up to your quarterback and to your edge rusher, who is all the time hurt. All the time. Like, this guy is constantly hurt. Like, he's got a bad leg. Like, just chop it off at the hip, bro. Get a prosthetic. You and the Blade Runner. It'll be cool. Just don't kill your girlfriend.
So you and I are both thinking that there's a strong chance maybe they're going to try to trade back and acquire more picks to get their needs. I think it's a smart thing to do, and I do believe that's probably the likely scenario because the report came out that the Lions are one of the lowest teams in terms of total number of picks in this NFL draft.
Only 6.
What do you think of the news of Paul Pasqualoni being the guy making the calls? Most people thought that he was going to be a figurehead. Paul Pasqualoni will be calling the defense for the Lions? Kind of murky, right?
I'm a little bit lukewarm on it. It's like getting old soup. And you're just kind of like, I don't know if I want
But I do
to eat
think
this.
that the input from Matt Patricia should be solid. I do think that they might be on the same page, at least in terms of when Matt Patricia talks to Pasqualoni and is like, okay, this is the game plan. You go and execute it. So I do believe from the top, I do think the game plan could be at least something that could be executed.
I think it's going to be heavily influenced by Matt Patricia. This is going to be Matt Patricia's defense. He is just designating Paul Pasqualoni as the guy to push the buttons. That's it. And I think that's what his job's going to be. He's going to be the button pusher. Like, you need to make sure that we've got the right linebacking core out there, and you need to make sure we've got the right secondary out there for this play. And that's his job. He's basically the water boy for Matt Patricia. All that being said, I'm still like, oh, it's like old soup to me because I want Matt Patricia doing it all, right?
Yeah.
Like Matt Patricia was brought in here because he's the defensive genius, right? He's like the evil mastermind of the evil empire. He's the guy who puts all the pieces in the right spot, and Malcolm Butler's making that interception on the goal line because Matt Patricia's telling him, like, hey, he's going here, be here, get to your spot. And Malcolm Butler's like, oh, okay, cool, I'll be right here on my spot. Oh, guess what? I got the ball. Game over. Super Bowl champion. And, like, we all want Matt Patricia to be that guy doing those things. Nobody trusts Paul Pasqualoni.
Right, exactly.
Nobody.
Let's look at NFL.com's Lance Zierlein's latest mock draft. What did you make of it? Who do they have the Lions taken? And right now, going into the draft, are you thinking more along the lines of they draft at 20 or they trade back and get 1 or 2 more picks in the second round?
I'm thinking they're going to end up trading back, especially with what Bob Quinn has come out and said, especially if there are guys that are still there that can fill a need on this team. And I'll explain that to you in a second. So with this mock draft, they end up taking Harold Landry from Boston College, and he's an edge rusher. Guy 6'3", 252 pounds. He's a big, strong guy. He draws comparisons to Vic Beasley. When Vic Beasley came out in the draft, and he played his first couple years of pro football. He's one of those guys who kind of just comes off the snap, runs right to the ball, kind of had to be taught a little bit how to drop back in coverage and to really learn how to be an effective pass rusher. So that's what he draws comparisons to. He's also compared to Bruce Irvin. I would take Bruce Irvin. You would too, I think. The bottom line on him from Lance Zierlein, he lacks premium size, but his burst, his stride, his length, and his ability to dip and rip around the edge gives him special potential as an edge rusher. Landry lacks strength at the point of attack and may be designated pass rush early in his career. While he can play standing for a 3-4 team, he's the best with his hands in the dirt as a rusher. So again, a versatile guy, a guy who can stand up or a guy who can get down in the dirt. And again, this is something that you're going to see Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn do as this goes on with their tenure here. They like guys who can do multiple things. Remember, when in New England, you had a linebacker playing tight end. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, whatever you can do to get a different matchup and get a different guy doing different things. I mean, the craziest thing ever was a linebacker being your tight end and scoring touchdowns for you offensively. And that's what they did in New England. They're going to do similar things here. Maybe not that dramatic, but again, the versatility, the being able to do and play different positions. Landry can get by as an NFL rusher with just speed and athleticism, which is good. We like athletic guys. But he has an opportunity to become a Pro Bowler if he can improve his hand usage and develop an inside counter. So he's got some work to do. He's a guy who can come in and will probably start right away. My big issue with him is he comes from the ACC. I don't necessarily like drafting guys from the ACC unless they're elite talents right away. I'm usually looking at the SEC or I'm looking at the Big Ten, maybe even the Pac-12 for more premium talent, just because the competition I feel in those leagues is higher and much better. All that being said, at his combine, he was a stud. He looks to be a guy who can come in and help right away. Now, with this draft, there are guys that are still available that can come in and make a huge impact on this team if they were to move back. All right. So in this mock draft, they got Maurice Hurst, defensive tackle from Michigan, getting picked up at 26. So you could fall back to 26 if the Falcons want to trade with you. And, you're moving back 6 spots. That's going to get you another draft pick as well. There is Rashad Evans, linebacker from Alabama at 28. He goes to the Steelers. Steelers might want to move up. You never know. Who else do we have? Darius Geis, a guy who we've talked about for a running back. He gets picked up at 32 in this mock draft. I mean, if you'd go from 20 to 32, you're going to get a second-round pick.
Yep.
So now you've just loaded up with that extra second-round pick. If your running back's still there, you've now just improved your running game. You've helped your offense immensely, and you picked up an extra pick in that second round. So
very good
helps
stuff.
Out your entire season.
I like the mock draft. I think it's very fair. The mock drafts have been kind of conservative, and what makes draft day fun is the wheeling and dealing of these teams. Very interesting stuff with some of the moves that have been made. The Colts, the Jets, things like that. You got potentially speaking now the Browns. It's going to be good stuff, the draft, in terms of who can move, who has the power play, who has the ability to do some things. So it's going to be a fun draft late in April. Do you think the Lions could support in the city of Detroit a draft before we get out of here? Because they're kind of saying, we want to support it and things like that. It would be wild, but at the same time, I kind of think the Lions underestimate the vitriol that might be showed nationally. You know what I mean? Because the first thing I thought was, dude, let's get a Martha Ford head and just kind of, thumbs down, just really talk about, we want a team. But, be careful what you wish for, because if you get it, it might be really bad.
So I don't know how would it work, right? So they would do it at Ford Field, I'm assuming. Would they end up blocking off, what is that? Is that Bob? No, it's not Bobian right there.
Maybe that District Detroit area,
I'm not sure where they would hold it or how they would do it. Because would it spill outside? And it's late April, so it's going to be cold, rainy.
Right.
Do you go outside? I mean, they'd have to put tents up like they did in Chicago. I think it could be done. And I think if it was brought here, you're right. I think there's a lot of vitriol, but Detroit fans are some of the best fans. Right? That's why we do this damn podcast, is because Detroit fans are the best fans. I think they would show up, and I think they'd show up in droves. I'm not sure how you would facilitate this just with all the logistics of getting it all put together. Is this going to take place inside Ford Field? What's going to spill outside? Is there going to be a jumbotron? I'm not sure how it would work out, but I think Detroiters would support it, and I think it would go off without a hitch. I think it'd be awesome.
Okay. Great podcast, sir. Man, it flew by. I feel like we just turned on the microphones and boom. We just had a great time. Always enjoy recording the podcast. A lot of fun times. Hope everything goes well. Opening day in the city of Detroit. Clean up, have fun, stay safe, and hopefully the Tigers can do some things. At least get off to a good start. First 6 games at home.
Yeah, hopefully go Tigers, number 1. Red Wings keep on losing. Ken Holland, you should be fired. Pistons, whatever. Confusing.
Season's
Nobody
almost
gets it. Let's go Michigan. Go blue. For real. Let's go. Let's win this.
See everybody next week. We'll recap everything that happened in the world of Detroit sports. You know it here on Doc and Jock.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.